Yesterday there was a demonstration which was carried out by traditionalist Indian political party, and they were asking the local authorities to arrest me. Now, why did they want to arrest me? Why do they want to arrest me? They feel that the public interest litigation that the Kautilya Society has done in the High Court of Allahabad is wrong, is against the people's wishes, and it's against development. Actually, the public interest litigation that the society started some 7 years back was done on the request of the local authorities and the eminent citizens and NGOs of this city. Because we were in a moment of history, a moment of Banaras's development that required that the beautiful ghats of Banaras were protected.
And protect against what?
Protected against the wrong ideas of development, which associate development with construction and construction of new buildings, rather than building on what exists and developing it to become a resource for the community. Because that's why Banaras exists. It exists because of its religious importance, its cultural importance. We have a lot of international tourists that come here. Something like 25,000 pilgrims come here every day and leave it. But they come here for the ghats, for the ashrams, for the temples. And these need to be protected because they are the source of livelihood of the people. The administration and the people of the city got together in a committee and decided that there was need for protecting this. There was also a project of the Japanese International Agency that wanted to take a ghat as a model to see how to develop it, basing it on the resource of the traditional economic, social dynamics of that particular ghat. And they asked the Kautilya Society to do a stakeholder analysis and understand what people want, so that what the JICA wants, what the Japanese wanted, what the local administration wanted, and what the people wanted was in consensus. The Heritage Committee that was established by the district authorities felt that the enlistment of these beautiful ghats of Banaras into the World Heritage List of UNESCO actually would have helped make people aware of the importance not only to Banaras but to humanity of this unique treasure that is not only architecturally beautiful but also culturally, religiously important and of value. And the only way to get it into the World Heritage List of UNESCO, as UNESCO told us, was to get laws made and implemented that protect the city as well as allow the city's heritage to become a resource for development. This was the reason that the district authority and the political people at that time asked the Kautilya Society to go ahead into the court and lodge a public interest litigation to protect these ghats. While on the parallel line, the government mechanism would have continued, because the government mechanism would have taken much longer. The Varanasi Development Authority and the local authorities actually together submitted an affidavit to the court which had a list of all the illegal buildings on the ghats, asking the court to make orders for facilitating them to decide the future of these buildings. That's how the list of illegal buildings became known, and steps started being taken by the court in order to decide and ask the local authorities to demolish these buildings, or at least to resolve the status of these buildings so that they're no longer considered illegal.
So at the time there was close cooperation between Kautilya Society and the local administration?
Yes, and the people. We were also communicating with the people. They knew who we were and they knew that we wanted to bring their voices across to the administration.
So why the administration asked you to do a PIL, which is normally a complaint against the public administration?
Yes, it's a bit strange that the administration itself asked the Kautilya Society to do a public interest litigation. But the local authorities, the minister, as well as the governor of the Uttar Pradesh state at that time, thought that the government mechanism would take too long. So they thought that it would have been important for government mechanisms to continue, but that there was a appeal to the court to make legislations and to get legislations implemented, so that the very authorities who wanted to implement legislations but sometimes have to do it against the wishes of the people actually were kind of forced or pushed by the court to implement the legislations which were in the long-term benefit of the people, which many people today, maybe today don't think, don't have as a vision, but that they would understand when when the benefits started being shown.
What I hear that people say is that you prepared a list of problems. Was it correct?
We were documenting the ghats because we were interested in documenting architecturally and visually the ghats, because we wanted to document the status quo of the ghats. But the local authorities at that time had a list of illegal buildings that were constructed on the ghats, and as part of this effort and, let's say, political will at that time to make sure that no further illegal constructions happen, the district authority itself, through the Varanasi Development Authority, made a list of 57 buildings that were illegal and submitted it to the court, asking the court to help it make a decision on what should be done with the illegal buildings. And it was not us. We were documenting the entire ghats, but they identified 57 specific buildings. And the public interest litigation continues to be, on one hand, looking into the status quo and the future of these buildings. And on the other hand, what we are trying to do for the last couple of years is to bring in propositive measures and ask the court to help the authorities to bring in steps like creating a heritage committee, getting the people and the administration and the civil society together to rethink about Banaras's future, as well as to create a legislative framework which would allow the enabling environment, the kind of environment that is required for people to feel that everyone is being treated justly. In the last one year or so, there's been a judge bench which has been constituted only for the Ganga and the problems of the river as well as the ghats. And this judge bench looked at the list of VDA, of the list submitted by the VDA of illegal constructions, and asked VDA to give it a timeline of what they would do and when they would do in order to resolve the status of these illegal buildings. The VDA has been, the last 1 year, been pushed with a monthly hearing to come back with status updates on what it is doing to resolve the situation of the illegal buildings which have been violating the law on the ghats. So when the VDA went to demolish the buildings on the ghats, there were massive demonstrations of the people against the authorities, and at that point the officers of the authorities who were facing the people face to face said that they were not responsible, and they justified their action by saying that it was Kautilya society that was responsible. They put the blame on us and said that we were responsible for all the demolition. But we were not responsible. It was the local authorities that were responsible for this. And they created a kind of conflictual situation between us and the people. Instead, we as a civil society were asked by the authorities to be the cushion between the people and the authorities and to create a dialogue and social participation. And instead of that, the officers, who were ineffective and corrupt, put the blame on us. So they resolved their situation, but putting the blame on us, they put the people against us. What has happened is now that there are demonstrations against us, putting pressure on the VDA to do something to force us to withdraw the public interest litigation, because the public interest litigation damages the interests of the businesses and the people here. And the administration, instead of saying to the people that they are illegal and they have violated the law and this is what needs to happen when you violate the law, says what it does is it lodges a FIR against us. That is, it lodges a criminal case against us.
On which base?
On the basis that our organization actually is not legal. The various activities that we do are not legal, because this is the only way they can force us to withdraw the public interest litigation, by cancelling our registration.
What is that the Kautilya society would do illegally?
No, we are doing nothing illegally, because whatever we are doing, we are sharing it with the authorities, and they have been renewing our registration, and they've been saying that whatever you're doing is illegal. But this is a way of pressurizing and harassing mentally, so that you get so tired of it, you say, well, I was asked by the authorities originally to work on this. If they don't want it, why the hell am I doing it? But the problem is not only here with the officers. The problem is also in some of the business people who think that money can buy everything. And they feel that an NGO should not be the one teaching them what is right and wrong, that they know from before what is right and wrong. So the need for an NGO there's no need for an NGO in this society. It's the business people who can decide what they need to do, or the political people who can decide what they want to do, colluding together for doing this, right? Which is what has been happening. They've been hand in glove in doing this. They also think that not only an NGO, but even women who are now coming to affirm themselves in society and playing a much bigger social role need to be stopped. But these are not the true traditionalists. These are people who are bigots. They feel they are empty. They don't have any longer the spirit of tradition. Because if they had, they would actually understand and value the need for people to move along with time. And they themselves would carry the spirit along and understand that today there is a need for women to come out and talk. But they feel that me as a woman coming out to talk against them as men is a kind of conflict that I'm creating and I'm doing, and that I'm not actually here to empower, but I'm here to fight against them. So they have to crush me. Yeah, they have to use violence on me because that's what they understand as the language. That's their language. But it's not people who are traditional, because there are many people who are traditional who are actually supporting me, because they realize that the need for NGO role, just like the need for the role of women, which was not there earlier. Neither civil society was so important, nor were women so important before in terms of public participation. But now it's becoming important because women are becoming educated, they're becoming aware, they want to be part of the entire process, social process of participation and development. But these people don't realize, they're actually short-sighted. They don't realize that winning today is going to make them lose in the longer term. And that what we are saying and what we are bringing forth is a process of dialogue and participation. It's not a process, it's not what we want is not conflict. What we want is that there's a consensus to create those kind of laws that will make the enabling environment for even civil society and business to be able to function in a just manner. Because it's only when there is justice that there's going to be peace. And if there's no justice, this kind of conflict is going to become worse. And that's not what we want. We want dialogue, we want to protect the castle of Benares, but not at the cost of a conflict in the city.
How people think that Allahabad court would issue orders just on the basis of a Kautilya society against the government laws?
No, Allahabad High Court cannot do that. The Allahabad High Court cannot just ask laws to be implemented on my whims and fancies. There are laws, they have not been implemented. The VDA has said that we have not been able to implement these laws and that there are violations of laws, and the VDA has said that we would like to make sure that laws are implemented. We are not the protagonists, we are actually helping in order to give the instruments to the VDA to be able to do its role, which it's not doing.
What about the press? The press was very active in India now to defend the woman in the case of violence. So you're doing a social work here. What about the press of Benares? Why are not they supporting you?
The press is for sensational news. And I think what they don't realize, they also don't know what the matter is. They have not come to me to ask. But also I think it's time for the Kautilya Society to go into public and talk to people and allow this sensational news environment of the press to be stopped and to come into a more dialogic way of communicating with the people. I think it's time we need to go to the press now.
Students in India have been very active in trying to protect the woman against all these new cases of raping that have been emerging in India. What would you like now, you as a woman in danger and threat, to tell to the students now?
I think the students need to rise up to protect their city. And the students need to rise up to squash this violence that is happening against civil society itself, because this violence that is happening is not against me personally. It's against the very existence and role and need and presence of the civil society and the women in society. So it's not a direct physical violence, but it's a mental violence that actually pushes the women to go back into their homes. Yeah, so it's a very, very subtle violence. And if the youth don't come up now and say, no, we want each of us, women and men, to participate in our social, in the development of our city, it's not going to happen also. It's not even going to happen because I want it to happen. It will happen only when the people want it to happen. And the people have to make the choice, not me. So if the youth of Banaras today, the youth of Banaras need to come up and say that civil society and women have a vital role in any kind of development that has to take place, and they actually represent that kind of traditional resource that needs to be led out and even become leaders of this new social movement. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
So actually, when you protect the environment, what you want to do is to protect the opportunities of the new generations.
Of course. When you protect the social environment, when you protect the natural environment, you're actually creating resources for the future. There's a very important Indian chief, Native American chief, who says that these resources that we have, whether it's natural resources or social resources, are not ours that we have inherited. We've actually borrowed it from the future generations. And that's what it is. That's what it is.